At the Chinese-style music concert. My boyfriend accused me of bullying Iris for a full 3 years with great righteousness. My father stood in front of the scheming girl and said, "My daughter has been violent in temperament since she was a child. She's a natural bad seed." When the camera turned to the scheming girl, she looked calm and composed. "I don't hate her anymore. All the sufferings are the foreshadowing of the blooming of flowers." Iris became extremely popular on the internet, while I was in a state of infamy. And Abby fans shone a laser pointer at my eyes and blinded me. In desperation, I dragged the steaming girl to our deaths together. When I opened my eyes, I was reborn and returned to the year of my first year in senior high school. Iris scratched her own arm with a blade while looking at me provocatively. "Everyone will know that you're bullying me later." My blood pressure immediately soared. The hand that gripped Iris was as firm as a pair of iron pliers, and she couldn't break free. I picked up the blade with my other hand and made 2 swift cuts. Iris's little face was instantly covered in wounds. I smiled and said, "Since you're so eager to be associated with me, I'll show you what real bullying is." At the Chinese-style music concert in my previous life, Cain had arranged for anti-fans in advance to come onto the stage and attack me when there was chaos at the scene. I endured the intense pain caused by the laser pointer burning my eyes. I found Iris, who was hiding behind my father in my blurry vision. Then I pulled out my hairpin, rushed over, and inserted it into Iris's neck. "Let's go to hell together." In the pushing and shoving, I rolled down a 100-meter-high platform together with Iris. The scene in front of me made me recall all of a sudden. I had actually returned to my first year in senior high school. This day was the beginning of me being identified as bullying Iris. Seeing that I didn't respond for a long time, Iris raised her head and smiled triumphantly. "Aurora, your family is very rich, isn't it? But in the future, your father, your boyfriend, everything of yours will belong to me. You can't compete with me." My blood pressure soared again. I ran towards Iris like I was crazy and slapped her twice so hard that she was stunned on the spot. Just because I was a coward in my last life. You adautalmosai. You bitch. Dared to frame me casually. I pinched Iris's neck. Amid her shrill screams, I pressed her head into the swill-bucket behind her. And I stared at the back of Iris's head and laughed maniacally. Heaven has been kind to me, Aurora. It even gave me a chance to turn the tables again. Iris was as short as a potato, and had no possibility of resistance in front of my height of 173 cm. She could only bury her head in the swell and let out a growl from her mouth. "Aurora. You bitch. Vomit. Just you wait. Vomit." I laughed even more wildly. And tears streamed down my face. Whether it's a dream or reality, it doesn't matter. Anyway, having fulfilled my obsession, I'm going to knock everyone down. In my previous life, I was a rising star in the music industry. On that day, I was holding a Chinese-style music concert at the Hai Cheng Gymnasium. My favorite boyfriend was invited onto the stage as a guest performer. Then he announced to everyone, "From this day forward, I, Cain, will sever all ties with this vicious woman who has bullied her classmate for 3 years." Subsequently, in my incredulous gaze, Iris walked onto the stage slowly wearing a white evening dress. Her eyes were like those of a little deer, as bright as stars. "Aurora. Long time no see. Do you still remember me? The little nobody who was bullied by you in high school for 3 years?" Before I could react, the reporter's prayer I'd been by Cain rushed to the stage. "Aurora has always had a good reputation. What evidence do you have to prove that you were bullied by Aurora?" At this time, my father stood in front of Iris. As Aurora's father, I feel very ashamed that I didn't educate her well. She has been violent in temperament and moody since she was a child. She's a natural bad seed. When the camera turned to Iris, she said righteously, "The reason why I'm standing here today is not to complain about my sufferings, but to expose Aurora's true face to everyone, so as to prevent her fans who like her from being deceived. Actually, I don't hate her anymore. All the sufferings are the foreshadowing of the blooming of flowers." As soon as these words were spoken, Iris set the whole place on fire, while I was surrounded by a group of radical fans. And they shone laser pointers at my eyes from a short distance. "Aurora, we have been supporting you since your debut. Is this how you repay us? My eyes began to have blurred vision, shed tears, and feel intense pain. It only took a moment for me to fall from the altar to the dust. My thoughts returned to the present. I released the hands that had been restraining Iris. She fell to the ground weakly and panted heavily. I took the opportunity to pick up the blade on the ground. Looking at Iris's distorted facial features filled with fear, I smiled and said, "Is scratching the arm with a blade considered bullying? Since you're so eager to be associated with me, I'll let you experience what bullying really is." The hand that I used to grip Iris was as firm as a pair of iron pliers, and she couldn't break free. Ignoring her pleading cries, I picked up the blade with my other hand and made 2 swift cuts. Iris's little face was instantly covered in wounds. I was quite satisfied with my masterpiece. I clapped my hands and left contentedly. As soon as I walked out of the cafeteria, I saw Ethan standing at the door. "I saw you scratching Iris's face with the blade," I said infuriately. "It's just about bullying a little potato. What can you do to me?" Ethan stammered. "I will keep it a secret for you." I looked at Ethan in shock. "Dude, do you know what you're talking about?" Ethan looked at me seriously. "I believe you have your own difficulties. The Aurora I know is a kind-hearted girl by nature." After saying that, Ethan handed me the soda in his hand. "You must be tired from hitting someone. Have a sip of soda to moisten your throat." As soon as I entered the corridor, Cain came towards me. He frowned and glanced up behind me a few times. Then his gaze fell on my face. "Have you seen Iris from our class? The teacher has something to talk to her about." In my previous life, Cain knew how to manipulate me. He always spoke to me in a cold tone and ordered me to do everything for him willingly, including being framed by Iris. He would ask me to apologize to Iris. He called it helping me build good relationships with my classmates. Bah! The soda that I hadn't swallowed yet was spat on Cain's face. Ethan beside me was shocked by me again. Cain wiped his face, and a bit of anger appeared on his usually cold face. "Are you crazy?" I met Cain's sharp gaze and raised my eyebrows slightly. "I'm more sober than ever. I just spat on your face. What can you do to me?" In my previous life, it took me a long time to find out. Iris was my father's illegitimate daughter, born outside. And Cain was born to the mistress that Cain's father kept outside. They were both children of mistresses. The fact that they could take a liking to each other just shows that like attracts like. Before Cain knew Iris's true identity, he firmly believed Iris's words of framing me. But he was also afraid of my family's influence and couldn't stand up for her. After all, he needed to increase his bargaining chips for competing to be the heir of the Cain family by marrying me. Seeing that being tough didn't work, Cain's expression gradually softened. He slowly leaned towards me and said in a gentle voice, "Aurora, is there anything that made you unhappy today?" I slapped Cain in the face and then shook my hand in disgust. "Yes. Because I saw you. I don't want to have anything to do with the son of a mistress in the future. Stay away from me." After saying that, I left straight away. Ethan followed closely behind me. "Aurora, were you possessed today?" I stopped in my tracks and looked up at the azure blue sky. "Well, you can explain it that way. I was possessed by myself who died drowning in my previous life." I remember that my liking for Cain was something known to the whole school. When I first entered the school, I not only confessed my love to him with my real name on the confession wall, I also secretly folded 1,001 stars. And each star recorded my thoughts about Cain. Last winter, Cain's puppy fell into the water. I couldn't swim, but I still jumped into the river without hesitation. Just because Cain would be sad if the puppy died. That intense love has disappeared forever. Since Iris's face was scratched by me, she hasn't come to class for a week. Soon, went out a lull sigh. It was the first parents' meeting of the new semester. Only under my father's insistence did my mother compromise and give the opportunity to attend this parents' meeting to my father. I naturally knew that my father wasn't doing it for me. Today was also the parent meeting for his precious illegitimate daughter, Iris. As soon as I walked into the classroom, I saw my father standing beside Iris's seat. He had a stern face and his voice carried anger. "Aurora, come here." I walked over. I directly ignored Iris, who was crying pitifully behind my father. I smiled and said, "Dad, What's the matter? Just as my father's slap was about to land on my face, Ethan quickly pulled me aside. My father became angry out of embarrassment and pointed at me. Aurora, the family sent you to school so that you could study hard. But look at you. Bullying the weak and bullying your classmates. Do you still deserve to be the daughter of our Aurora family? You're simply a natural bad seed. The volume of my father's voice gradually increased. For a moment, the gazes of all the classmates and parents were focused on me. There were tears in my eyes. Dad, you can trounce your own daughter just based on someone else's nonsense. Then I looked at Iris with the wronged expression. Who did I bully? Who did I pick on? You should show the evidence before framing someone. My father turned around and looked at the 2 light purple scars on Iris's face. Looking extremely heartbroken, he turned his head and scolded me. Aurora, look at what her face has become. Could it be that she scratched herself to frame you? If you don't apologize to classmate Iris in public today, our Aurora family will never recognize you as our daughter again. In the large classroom, countless people cast glances full of curiosity. The daughter of the Aurora family actually bullied her classmate? Girls really shouldn't be spoiled too much. Look at how spoiled she's become. Fortunately, her father is reasonable. It seems that the family education of the Aurora family is good. It's just that the child herself has gone astray. A flash of pleasure appeared in Iris's eyes, who was standing behind my father. I'm not the soft person that they could manipulate in my previous life. I looked at Iris with a half smile. Since Iris believes that I bullied her, then I'd like to ask Iris. When? Where and for what reason, and did I scratch your face? Iris quietly took my father's arm and choked out in a low voice. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon last Thursday in the cafeteria. Just as I walked opposite you. For some unknown reason. You rushed up and assaulted me. After saying that, her nose turned sour, and 2 lines of clear tears rolled down from her eyes. I was indeed in the cafeteria at 5 o'clock in the afternoon last Thursday. But I was with Ethan. I swept my gaze towards Ethan beside me. Ethan immediately understood and said, yes. That afternoon Aurora explained the last challenging question of the exam to me. To repay her, I treated her to a meal in the cafeteria. The classmates in our class all know that I don't have a deep relationship with Aurora. And there's no need for me to lie for her. Iris was so angry, that her whole body trembled. And even the corners of her mouth were twitching. You guys. You must have colluded to mess with me. Ethan twitched the corners of his mouth and said with a half smile, classmate Iris. Don't you have paranoid delusions of persecution? Although I don't know why there are 2 ugly scars on your face. You can't just shift the blame onto others casually. Spreading rumors is against the law. Cain beside them looked at Iris's broken and aggrieved expression. And a trace of gloom flashed in his eyes. He whispered in my ear, Aurora. Whether you did it or not, let's turn big issues into small ones and small issues into nothing. Just apologize. Otherwise, I won't like you anymore. I looked at this narcissistic man with disdain, wishing I could slap him right away. You son of a bitch. You think too highly of yourself. You really think you're the Mogo Grottos with so many murals. You're nothing at all. My father severely rebuked me. Aurora. Are you rebelling? Who taught you these foul words? You have no manners at all. I smiled at my father and said, since I was a child, my mother has been busy traveling everywhere and didn't care much about me. Of course. I learned these from you. My dear father. In my previous life, I was always an obedient girl. I showed amazing business talent since I was a child. And I even thought about studying finance and managing our family company in the future. Unexpectedly, my father forced me to learn singing and dancing, saying that it could cultivate my temperament. Not only did I always rank first in the whole school in terms of grades all year round, but I was also excellent at singing and dancing. But when I handed him the satisfactory report card, he frowned and scolded me. Pride makes people regress. You shouldn't be so conceited. It was not until Iris appeared that it shattered his image as a strict father in my heart. I saw him taking Iris to a concert, and I saw him queuing up to buy ice cream with her. I saw him asking her with a doting expression what gift she wanted for her birthday. But he didn't even remember my birthday. It turned out that he wasn't incapable of loving a child, he just didn't love me. In my previous life, I always trapped myself in the prison of love. I was distressed that it must be because I didn't do well enough that my father and my boyfriend didn't love me. It was not until this life that I finally understood. If a woman is spiritually barren, obsessed with being loved, and overly eager to be recognized, no matter what abilities and resources she has, it's very difficult to rescue her from difficult situations. I can be my own light and don't need others to shine for me. This farce didn't end until the arrival of the head teacher. Later, my father wanted to retrieve the surveillance footage from the cafeteria to find evidence of my bullying Iris. But he was told that the surveillance had broken down not long ago, and the worker hadn't been hired to repair it yet. The surveillance was secretly removed by Ethan and me on the night of the day when Iris claimed to be bullied. After the parents' meeting, I began to bully Iris openly. I organized a small group to isolate her. And no girl in the class dared to be friends with her anymore. I smeared glue all over her stool and stuffed her desk hole with garbage. During the big break, while the head teacher went for collective lesson preparation, I had someone carry a box of mineral water and pour bottle after bottle over Iris's head. Dense small water droplets dripped down from Iris's forehead. Her hair and clothes were all soaked through. I proudly mocked her. "You always fantasize about me bullying you. So now you've got what you wanted. Now you can go and tell the whole world about your grievances." Iris stared at me with hateful eyes, wishing she could skin me alive. I glanced at Cain standing beside me. He seemed to be suppressing his anger. He looked at Iris, who was drenched like a drowned rat, with a look of pity. He wanted to avenge her, but was afraid of the influence of the Aurora family. In the end, Iris knelt down at my feet with a sobbing voice. "Aurora, you're magnanimous. Please calm down and let me go." I couldn't help laughing. I'm not a magnanimous person. I'm just a petty and vengeful person. Whoever makes me unhappy, I will definitely return it to her 100 or even 1,000 times over. Iris's body couldn't stop shaking. And finally, she fainted under my intimidation and torture. Cain secretly informed the head teacher. I was called to the office. I showed the head teacher the hospital diagnosis certificate and the medicine for treating depression. Then, imitating Iris's coquettish and scheming appearance, I squeezed out tears pitifully. At the parents' meeting that day, Iris slandered me for bullying her in front of everyone. And even my father believed it and publicly announced that he would no longer recognize me as his daughter. Since then, I've become insomniac and anxious. And I even wanted to commit suicide at one point. I don't want to be like this either. But I can't control myself. Teacher, had until wide session. I'm really seriously ill now. In the end, the head teacher had to carefully comfort me. The classmates in the class all knew that I didn't like Iris. Only Ethan asked me in confusion, "Aurora, why are you so different from before?" I also asked Ethan in confusion, "Aren't you the same? You never used to chatter in my ear before." In my previous life, I remembered that Ethan was a somewhat introverted boy. And his ears would turn red even when he occasionally said a word to me. Anyway, heading to side. Thank you for helping me hide the fact that I scratched Iris. Ethan looked at me with bright and determined eyes. I said I would keep it a secret for you. Not long after, the school held a competition to find the most beautiful singing voice. The teachers from the special enrollment office served as judges. The singer who stood out in the end would be granted the special admission qualification at University F. In my previous life, under Cain's arrangement, Iris passed through all the rounds and entered the final. The night before the final, where I competed with Iris for the championship in my previous life, Cain specifically came to me and said, "Aurora, I'm going to draw a sketch tomorrow. If you're willing to be my model, I'll agree to let you be my girlfriend." I agreed without hesitation. So I really didn't go to the final that day. I was even so excited that I couldn't sleep all night. I thought it must be my sincere heart that melted Cain, the unshakable iceberg. The art studio is right in front of the music and dance building. That day, Iris's sweet and melodious singing voice came from a distance. But her way of producing high and middle notes was rather monotonous, making it difficult to present a perfect singing effect. When the host announced that the championship went to Iris, Cain's eyes and eyebrows were filled with joy. He had always been indifferent in front of me, and I had never seen him so happy before. At that time, I was still naive enough to think that he was so happy because I became his girlfriend. I decisively signed up for the competition. In this life, I want to see how Iris can win. When I got home from school on Friday, my father specifically rushed back from the company. The first thing he said to me was to ask me to give up my participation qualification. My hand holding the soup spoon paused, and I casually replied, "Impossible." My father flipped the table over in a rage, and the soup splashed all over the floor. "I tell you to give it up. So you should give it up. Do you think I'm going to harm you? As a daughter, if you don't listen to your father, it's considered unfilial." I calmly wiped the soup that splashed on my hand, and then looked at my father meaningfully. Iris, who kept saying that I bullied her last time, is also participating in the competition. I heard that she got into the school through connections in the first place. I said word by word, "Do you want me to ask my mother to investigate her family background? After all, my mother is very curious and likes to gossip about everything." After hearing this, my father's face froze, and he was uncharacteristically silent. He didn't dare to offend my mother. Back then, he was a penniless man who married into my grandfather's family. After my grandfather passed away, he took over the huge family business. However, how could the upper class easily recognize his identity? In the end, he still had to rely on my mother to find connections and build relationships for him everywhere. For hours before my turn to go on stage in the competition, Cain came to me. "Aurora, I don't know what misunderstanding there is between us that makes you keep ignoring me. I really miss the days when you used to chatter in my ear. If you have any grudges, can we resolve them now?" "No." I pushed Cain away. "A good dog doesn't block the way." "But you said you would love me forever before." A layer of darkness shrouded Cain's eyes. I sneered. "The one before wasn't the real Aurora. That was a fool. Please don't attribute the stupid behavior of the past to me now." Cain's eyes dimmed a bit more, and he stuffed a bottle of orange juice from his bag into my hand. "Aurora, it doesn't matter if you don't forgive me. I got up early this morning and squeezed the orange juice you like to drink. You once told me that drinking orange juice can make people feel better. I hope you're happy every day. Don't drink it." Before I could react, a thumb suddenly appeared, snatched the orange juice from my hand and threw it on the ground. "Aurora, Cain is really not a good person. There might be something mixed in this orange juice." Cain angrily grabbed Ethan's collar. "You little brat. Why are you always meddling in things? Your heart is dirty. So you see everything is dirty." Ethan didn't back down either and punched Cain to the ground. At this moment, I just happened to notice Iris standing on the opposite art building. She was leaning against the railing and looking towards me. Cain and Iris must have plotted together to make me have an accident today. I picked up the orange juice on the ground, and a mischievous smile appeared on my face. On my way to the art building with a bottle of orange juice, Ethan was so nervous that he stuttered. "Aurora, if you want to drink orange juice, I can go and buy it for you right now." Who knows what Cain might have added to it. "Aurora, you can't drink it." I didn't say anything. I grabbed Ethan's arm and went straight up to the third floor. As soon as we reached the stairway, we heard Iris Gokathes lie snuggling in Cain's arms. "I really want to win the championship. Cain, you must find a way to make that bitcher or drink the orange juice so that she can never speak again in her life. By the way, Cain, I want to tell you a secret. Actually, I'm Aurora's half-sister. Once Aurora becomes a mute, the company of the Aurora family will be mine in the future." Hearing this, I laughed loudly. Iris. If my grandfather in heaven knew that the family business he worked so hard to build for half his life would fall into the hands of a bitch like you. Even if he turned into a fierce ghost, he would want to eat your flesh, drink your blood, gnaw your bones, and skin you alive." When Iris saw me coming, her face suddenly turned cold at first, and then she put on an arrogant expression. "Since you've heard it, I might as well tell you that I'm your father's illegitimate daughter, born outside. He said that he will take my mother and me into the family in the future. Aurora, if you withdraw from the competition right now and kneel down to beg for mercy, maybe I'll ask my mother to give you a place to stay in the Aurora family." I turned a deaf ear to her words. I calmly took off my coat and tied up my hair. And I turned around and told Ethan, "Go and hold Cain down for me." Then I gradually approached Iris with the orange juice in my hand. And the smile in my eyes completely disappeared. "Did you forget so soon how those scars on your face came about? You keep calling Cain's name. Of course. You should drink the orange juice squeezed by your Cain." Iris covered her mouth and stepped back, screaming. Cain knew what I was going to do. But he couldn't break free from Ethan, who was stronger and taller than him. He could only roar at me angrily. "Aurora! Bitch! How dare you!" I clamped Iris's hands tightly. A little potato like her was simply unable to struggle in my hands. I pushed her down to the ground, forcefully pried open her mouth, and poured half of the orange juice into Iris's mouth. She was choked and coughed continuously, unable to say a word. Then I turned to look at the angry Cain and smiled. "Why are you in such a hurry? The remaining half of the orange juice is for you." A trace of fear flashed in Cain's eyes, and his voice began to tremble. "Aurora, do you still remember the lucky bracelet you gave me on my birthday? You knelt in the temple for a whole day and night to pray for it when I was seriously ill. You said that you wanted me to marry you in the future. And you said that you would love me forever." A surge of intense hatred suddenly welled up in my chest. How could I not remember? I loved you with all my heart and soul. In my previous life, you said that your father didn't accept stars in the entertainment industry. So I obediently focused on making music and refused the olive branches thrown by various famous directors. In order to help you sign the contract, I accompanied you to drink and smiled obsequiously at the drinking parties. You said that Iris came from a single-parent family and asked me to be more tolerant of her. So I blindly let her put all kinds of charges on my head. In the end, I died together with Iris. And you ground my bones to ashes and scattered them in the barren mountains. My repeated concessions didn't turn me the slightest bit of cherish. Instead, they brought about your arrogance and insatiability, as you didn't know how to appreciate my kindness. I reached out and grabbed Cain's neck, my eyes filled with venom. Playing the emotional card is useless. Facts have proven that sincerity can't be exchanged for sincerity. Because a beast like you doesn't even have a conscience. I knew a long time ago that you liked Iris and were attracted to her looks. You've never liked me. You were just coveting the power and influence of my family. You're just as disgusting as your mistress mother. From now on, we're completely done with each other." I slowly released the hand that was gripping Cain's neck. His eyes were bloodshot, and he was panting heavily. Taking this opportunity, I steadily, accurately, fulfilledly, and forcefully poured the other half of the orange juice into his mouth. "In the last life, you pushed me into hell. In this life, it's your turn." In the end, I didn't participate in the competition because my aspiration was no longer to be a singer. I had already decided to study financial management and take care of my grandfather's company in the future. The company was the lifelong effort of my grandfather. If he hadn't had no son and my mother hadn't been so playful by nature, how could the company have fallen into my father's hands? Iris and Cain were sent to the hospital. Taking advantage of the chaos, I called my mother and told her everything I had done at school in detail. And I repeatedly told her not to let my father know. The doctor found that the orange juice extracted from the scene contained an excessive amount of penicillin-based drugs. Taking an excessive amount of it would cause a person to lose their voice. I and everyone present were taken to the police station. The police inferred from the surveillance footage extracted from the school and Ethan's testimony that the biggest suspect of spiking the drink was Cain. Iris and Cain could no longer speak for the rest of their lives. And both of them dropped out of school. And I spent money to ask the media to expose Cain's identity as an illegitimate child. A illegitimate child made the Cain family a laughingstock overnight. And Cain was thus abandoned and by the Cain family. Since Iris lost her voice, my father would definitely not let me off easily. So I simply blocked all his contact information and stayed in a hotel all the time. When I was bullying Iris, I pulled out a few of her hairs. Together with the hairs of my father that I had collected before, I secretly went to do a paternity test. On the day the results came out, I specifically invited my mother to a coffee shop opposite the hospital. In the coffee shop, my mother lazily took a sip of coffee. and the slightly raised corners of her mouth revealed an air of arrogance. Aurora, it's not that I'm criticizing you, but you're becoming more and more out of line. A young girl like you doesn't even know to go home. Even if your father is angry, he won't do anything to you because of an outsider. I smiled with a hint of mockery. Mom, how can you be so sure that she's an outsider? You've never had the awareness to be prepared for danger in times of peace. After saying that, I handed my mother the paternity test results of my father and Iris. My mother casually took it and read it. Her eyes suddenly became sharp. Abel, that son of a bitch. He actually kept a mistress and had a bastard. He's forgotten who helped him rise to this position. I want a divorce. I also want to beat your father and that mistress to death, as well as that bitch they gave birth to. I'll kill them all. The more my mother spoke, the more agitated she became. Please calm down first. I put down my coffee and analyzed rationally. Grandfather's company is already in my father's hands. If you have a falling out with him now, you'll just end up losing both your wealth and your family. And you'll only be benefiting the mistress and her daughter for nothing. My mother grabbed my hand and cried, Aurora, your mother has been living a smooth life all her life. I really don't know what to do when faced with such a thing. Please give me some advice. My mother had been protected too well by my grandfather since she was a child, so she became a proud and naive woman. Which gave a man like my father, a poor man who married into a wealthy family, an opportunity. I covered my mother's hand and said softly, I've secretly investigated. My father has given the mistress a lot of real estate over the years. If he wasn't greedy, where would he have gotten all that money? The light in my mother's eyes gradually dimmed. Could it be that he evaded taxes? I continued. My father doesn't have much ability to be able to manage such a large company. It's all thanks to the founding members who started the business with my grandfather in the first place. If a leader doesn't have enough courage and determination, the subordinates naturally won't be that loyal. You go and contact the founding members who started from scratch with my grandfather, or by office secretary to find evidence of his tax evasion. My mother immediately beamed with joy. Aurora, you're truly my good daughter. You know so much at such a young age. Your high IQ is definitely inherited from your grandfather. Once your father goes to prison, the company will be ours. And it will be as easy as crushing to ants to deal with that pair of bitches. Half a month later, I carried my school bag and returned home. As I walked into the living room, my father noticed me coming in and threw a cup of scalding hot tea, along with the teacup, at me roughly. Fortunately, I dodged quickly. The expensive teacup shattered on the ground, just like the father-daughter relationship between him and me, which was destined to be incomplete in both the previous life and this life. He said in a deep voice, So you still remember to come back? I tilted my head and smiled. Dad, this is my home. I can come back whenever I want. Can't I? My father picked up the belt on the chair and walked up to me. Aurora, you can still be so carefree and have no sense of guilt at all. You're really vicious. It's the father's fault if a daughter is not well educated. Today, I should fulfill my duty as a father. I pointed in the direction of the door. Dad, don't be too excited. I have a big gift that has already arrived at the door. Do you want to go and take a look? Then the door was pushed open, and my mother walked in with the police. Before my father could figure out what was going on, he was handcuffed by the police. Mr. Abel, Hebel? Someone has reported that you are involved in tax evasion. Please come back with us and cooperate with the investigation in accordance with the law. My mother threw the bag in her hand at my father from a distance. Still feeling angry, she walked up to my father and punched and kicked him. She didn't stop until she was out of breath, and then she cursed while panting. Abel, the lifelong effort of my father was almost destroyed by you. How dare you evade taxes? You heartless old bastard. Do you deserve my family? My mother had been like a proud red rose for half her life, noble for so many years. This was the first time she went crazy like a shrew. It seemed that everyone's mental state was not normal in this life. My father tried his best to defend himself to the police, claiming his innocence. It was not until he finally realized what was going on that he opened his eyes wide and glared at me furiously. You unfilial daughter. It must be your doing. I quietly watched my father's angry and frustrated expression. Remaining unmoved, my father continued to curse at me. Aurora, I should have strangled you to death when you were born. You're a disaster. Whoever you're around will have bad luck. You've ruined me and Iris. My mother rolled up her sleeves and stepped forward to slap my father more than a dozen times. Even now, you're still thinking about that mistress's daughter. Abel. I really was blind to have fallen for you. A useless man who married into a wealthy family. Going to prison is the retribution for you living off to families for so many years. As for those two mistresses, I have plenty of ways to torture them. I'll make their lives a living hell. I curled the corner of my mouth and leaned close to my father's ear, whispering, actually, I've known for a long time that Iris is my half-sister. That's why I've been bullying her at school. You're right. I'm a natural bad seed. But being a wicked woman really feels great. Back then, my father married my mother for his own future. He didn't love my mother. So naturally, he didn't love me either. He has a simple mind. So he doesn't like smart children. He regarded Iris's mother as his confidant. Iris was also born stupid and was the most like him. So of course, he gave all his love to Iris. My father was successfully sent to prison by my mother and me. The Abel family was temporarily handed over to my grandfather's old friend before his death. That is, Athan's grandfather, who took over. The driver told me that my mother had gone to Iris's house and caused a huge commotion. When she was smashing things in Iris's house, she even found a lot of her own dowry from back then. While cursing my father for being heartless, my mother ordered people to punish Iris and her mother. She even took back all the properties that my father had given to Iris's mother over the years and drove them out of Hai Cheng. On Saturday afternoon, when I was going home, I specifically didn't let the driver pick me up. I knew that Cain must be lying in wait outside the school, waiting for an opportunity to take revenge on me. This just gave me the opportunity to bring him to justice. In the last life, he pushed me into hell. In this life, just making him mute is far from enough. When I reached the entrance of the alley, I could see Cain, who looked a bit decadent. From a distance, he had lost a lot of weight. He had a cigarette in his mouth, and there was even a scar at the corner of his eye. After being abandoned and by Cain's father in a newspaper announcement, the legitimate wife of the Cain family had sent many people to deal with Cain and his mother. He deserved it. This was the retribution for having a mistress as a mother. I knew that Ethan was following behind me, so I wasn't panicked. I looked at Cain with a half-smile, the curve of my mouth showing contempt. Cain, when you're still alive and well. How come you look so different from the way you used to be after just a few days? Cain couldn't speak anymore, and a murderous intent rose in his eyes. Suddenly, he strode towards me. He took out a dagger from his sleeve. When the dagger in his hand was about to stab into my chest, Ethan suddenly appeared, grabbed his arm, and punched Cain in the face. Soon the two of them were grappling with each other. I quickly took out my phone and dialed 110. During the fight, Cain's sharp dagger scratched Ethan's arm, and a thick smell of blood filled the air. Ethan firmly protected me behind him and resisted Cain's attacks. I let out a scream, trying to attract the attention of the people around. Soon the police arrived, and Cain was arrested and imprisoned for the crime of intentional injury. Cain had already dropped out of school. With a criminal record, it would be difficult for him to find a job after being released from prison. I could already predict his miserable later life in the mud. Not to mention me. Just the wife of the Cain family would never allow this illegitimate son with a stain on his record to gain a foothold in Hai Cheng. I decided to go to the United States to study with a peaceful mind. On the day I went abroad, I happened to meet Ethan at the airport, who was dragging a suitcase. He pretended to be surprised and asked me, Aurora, are you also going to the United States? Yes. Ethan couldn't seem to hold it in anymore and let out a muffled laugh with his head down. What a coincidence. What a coincidence. Me too. I hesitated for a while and then asked Ethan seriously. You were also reborn, right? Why do you ask? Are you also reborn? Yes. I just think that the Ethan in the last life was a boy whose face would turn as red as an apple even when he talked to me. He wasn't as brave as you are now. Ethan looked at me quietly. His obsidian-like eyes were shining with a gentle light, and even the sunlight around us seemed to become tender. When I was in primary school, I was always bullied by my classmates because of my cowardly personality. At that time, you helped me drive them away and even put a pink band-aid on my wound. I rubbed my head and had a vague impression. Was I so violent when I was a child that I would fight with others? Ethan quickly waved his hand. No. You were protecting me. How could such a kinder or take the initiative to fight with others? In the last life, when you were attacked by fans with a laser pointer, I protected you in front of me. But there were so many of them. And I couldn't protect you at all. In the end, we both fell off the high platform together. I've always felt guilty for not protecting you well in the last life. So in this life, I've always stayed by your side, afraid that Cain and Iris would do you harm. Ethan stared at me directly. His serene and tranquil face became even more dazzling in the sunlight. My cheeks suddenly became extremely hot, and my heart was pounding uncontrollably. Ethan asked me anxiously, Aurora, are you sick? Why is your face so red? I suddenly giggled and said with a smile, our two families have been on friendly terms for generations. In the future, if we take the path of a marital alliance, it would be quite suitable as we are well matched in social status. The end of the full text.